One of the biggest challenges we all face is how are you an amazing parent, husband, or wife or mother, but an awesome professional? I think one of the biggest things we're all going to learn today, and what I'm really most excited about our guest speaker, Kai, is that he's 1,000% about systems. I was a loan officer for years that I built my business off my personality. I know I'm very charming. That was supposed to be a joke. So building up a business off a personality, you can only go get so far in business. But what was great about once I learned how to get systems in life and systems in business, I was really able to elevate my mortgage business. So when you think about it, 2013, being a solo loan officer, doing $36 million a year of funding, which is great. But then 3 years later, jumping over to $100 million, then over $200 million in production in a year, I had to learn systems. So write this down for me. System is something that saves you time, energy, and money. System is something that saves you time, energy, and money. So when you listen to Kai McBride today, what you're going to learn from him is how to save yourself time, make yourself more money without having to exert so much energy. Those are the lenses that I want you to look through today. So please, warm welcome for Kai McBride.
Tell me if you raise your hand if you're a 24/7 reader, mindset, subscriber course. Anybody with Wally? Okay. Raise your hand if you have any idea who I am. Okay. Oh, see, you're not the only person that's popular. I've been in the industry since 2001. And what's really interesting is I couldn't be more opposite than Wally and some people out there who are these natural charismatic. They built their success on personality. They built their success on who they are. I actually started out as a tech industry. And in the 2001 tech crash, you guys are probably thinking, how old is this dude? I'm Asian. I could be 17 or 76. You have no idea. But I am a Gen Xer. I'm 52 years old. I have nice skin and I color my hair. So that's what it is. But I started in 2001, and during the dot-com crash, I got into the mortgage industry. And I remember telling people who wanted me to get into it, I said, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a big personality person. I'm not going to stop by offices and drop off rate sheets and donuts, which it was back then, not today. And he says, no, but you're good at one thing. You're really, really good at systems. So in the span of 12 years, I was an $80 million producer. If you take appreciation into account, that's like 150 million today. I average between 180 and 200 units a year because of systems. And the thing about systems is that they put you in a position where you don't have to think as much, and you'll know what to do next, and it makes it repeatable and sustainable. So I've got a couple questions for you. Right now, how many people feel very overwhelmed with the amount of things that they have to do in order to be successful? Just like overwhelmed, okay? And let me give you an example. How many of you are still doing traditional type prospecting and phone calls and meetings and calling agents and everything like that, all right? How many of you have also delved into the world of social media content, video, right? How many of you think it's completely overwhelming doing both? Okay. How many of you don't even understand why you're supposed to do both and you tend to favor one or the other? Okay, so what I want to talk about today is we're in very, very interesting times, because when 2022 happened, 2023 happened, and mortgage rates and prices all peaked at the same time, it was also at the same time that digital marketing, social media has played such a huge part in our industry. But I think a lot of us don't really know how to take advantage of it and all the responsibilities and all the things that we have to do. So my goal today is to really break down what exactly that is, why we need to do it, why we have to embrace both traditional and modern marketing and sales. I'm going to give you a few different lenses on how to look at things differently, but I like to simplify things as much as possible. I'm going to have everybody walk away with just learning one thing, and that's it. And if you learn one thing, it can really propel, kickstart your business, and create sustainable. And I'm intentionally making it as simple as possible, because how many of you guys go to events like this, go to webinars, and it's so brilliant, but it's kind of complicated that you can't implement it, right? Like, I don't want you to walk away thinking Kai was just an amazing and brilliant, but I don't know how to implement this. So I want to give you a system that is extremely easy to implement. And it is the personal thing that I use to grow my business and how I coach other people to grow their business. So when we think about today, we're being asked to do more than ever, okay? We've got the left side, which is traditional, and we've got the right side, okay? Raise your hand if you do more of the left side in your business than the right side of the business, more traditional. Raise your hand if you're more the left side. You're making calls, you're sending text messages, follow-ups, asking for referrals, you're tracking, you're meeting people in person, okay? Raise your hand if you have started the right side, and raise your hand if you do more of the right side, okay? And this is what becomes overwhelming. Few are doing it all, and if you do it all, do you sometimes feel like you're just going through the motions, right? Where you're getting a lot of traction on one thing, and you're saying, you know, I just posted 5 Instagram reels, but is it really creating business for me, right? And I'm going to change the way you look at that stuff, because all of these things are integrated together, and that's what we have to see. They're integrated together. They're not separate. And when you treat them separately, you're going to get lesser results. You're not going to compound, and then it's going to feel like you're having too much, okay? So let's break down some things, traditional versus modern, so that you understand. Traditional converts very well because it's generally hand-to-hand combat. It's very personal. But here's the problem with traditional. How many of you, especially if you've gone through any type of core philosophy, get into that routine of, I've got to call 50 agents on Monday and I just have to continue to pound and pound and pound, right? How does that feel? How does that feel when you're on vacation, right? Because if you stop calling, you stop making money. So the great thing about traditional is that it gives high conversion, it's high relational, but it's limited reach and limited leverage. Now, there's a lot of leaders in the industry that say, you don't need to do the right side. You can create some relationships with some agents, but let me give you some statistics, okay? So you're Patrick too?
Yes.
Patrick, how long have you been in the industry?
I've been in insurance for 14 years.
Okay, so we can't count that. Who's been in the industry for like 20 years? Just raise your hand. Okay, Pitts, I'm gonna call on you. 2005, if you wanted to do 100 units, how many agents did you need to do 100 units?
500 probably.
To do 100 loans,
100 loans.
100 loans, how many agents did you need to refer you that many loans? Back in the day, 10, 15, right? 10, 15 good agents, all right? So I want to give you a statistic. I have a coaching client that did 187 units last year. Patrick, take a guess how many agents referred him 187 deals?
Oh, a lot.
105. 105. So think about it, right? Agents are doing less business, so we have to do more business. And so if you stick to the traditional route, okay, so let me ask you a different question. Out of the 105 agents who referred him business, how many out of the 105 only referred him one transaction the entire year? 70. 70. So the mentality is that I'm going to do traditional business, but I'm only going to go after the top producers. If he would have done that, he would have done 70 less transactions. Do you guys see that? So do you guys see that agents are doing less business? We have to leverage our time better. We have to rely on the onesie-twosie agents. Because sometimes those are the good agents. They just don't have a lot of business. But let me ask you a question. Do you guys have time to do coffee meetings with 105 agents? No. So we have to leverage the right side. We have to use leverage. We have to create digital presence. We have to understand how to interact with them digitally and in groups. Does that make sense? This is great, but it doesn't scale. How many of you over the years, raise your hand if you had those 10, 15 really, really good agent partners, and then when the market dips, they dip too. So guess what? You got to go get more agent partners, but not to replace those 15. You probably have to replace them by 50. That make sense? Okay. That's the limitation to the left side. What's the limitation to the right side? It's great. You get reach, you get leverage, but the conversion, how do I convert? How do I convert on a video? How do I convert on a social media post? How do I convert on those things? And so when I see people that do a lot of social media, that do a lot of digital, you know what they don't like to do? They don't like to pick up the damn phone. They don't like to text. How many loan officers do you know, whether it's yourself or who you work with, that just won't pick up the phone and won't do the follow-up work? They want to sit behind a computer and they want to do the modern things. The reality is that one can work, but both is what you really need to build a real business with momentum that covers them all right? So let's talk about the next thing. The generational gap is real, okay? Raise your hand. I'm a Gen Xer, like I said, 52 years old. I know I look 37, but it's fine. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're a boomer. Okay, all right. Raise your hand if you're Gen X. Raise your hand if you're a millennial. Raise your hand if you're Gen Z. First of all, millennials are 42 years old. I don't know how they got 42 years old. And Gen Z is like 29, almost 30 years old. It's crazy, right? Here's the thing. The more you go to the left side, traditional, the more you go to the right side, modern. And so if you start to favor and bias one side, you're also favoring and biasing one generation. So you're limiting the scope of who your target audience can be. Because boomers, face-to-face, personal, they're the type of people you can get on a call with them and be like, you know what, Patrick, I'm gonna use you. Gen X, like myself, we like that, some professionalism, it's all about the follow-up. Millennials, a lot of millennials here, you guys were the founders of social proof. You guys won't do anything unless you look it up, you Google it. I'm not going to a restaurant until I look at the Yelp reviews. And if I want to buy 2 Amazon products, I'm going to buy the one that has more reviews. Millennials started that. Gen Z took it by the reins and says, I'm not even going to work with you unless I like how you look on social media first, or I like how you look online first. And so depending on which side you go on, you could possibly alienate both sides, and so you need to do both. But again, you guys are sitting there going, I understand what you're saying, Kai, we have to do both. Still feels overwhelming. I'm going to give you a system for that, okay? By the way, I live in Austin, Texas. I'm originally from LA. But I know I had a 32-year-old agent look me dead in the eye and say, I will not work with a loan officer unless they have good social media presence. Otherwise, my borrowers will not relate to them. So if you feel behind the curve in modern marketing, that's why you got to get on that bandwagon, okay? Now, let me say one more thing in terms of this. How many of you feel like you're in a depressed market? I know a lot of you are local, but how many sometimes feel like you're in a depressed market with inventory and things like that? I believe the loan officer of the future needs to be licensed in like 5 states, or at least to be able to cross different counties, being able to cross. Now, we're here in North Dallas, which it's a great community in terms of real estate, but I know people in Boston that suffer, so they got to get business in Connecticut, they got to get business in other states. You guys want to drive 400 miles to go do a coffee meeting at Starbucks with somebody? It's not going to work, okay? Now, on the modern side, where they spend, it's different, because a lot of people ask me this question. Am I going to go LinkedIn? Am I going to go Facebook? Am I going to go IG? Well, it depends. Because you've got the boomers on the left side. They like phone, email, and Facebook. Gen Xers, they start to go to Facebook and YouTube. And by the way, I can spot a boomer and a Gen Xer really quickly because they're the first ones to warn you about some scam that's happening. They're going to repost that scam. Don't do this. It's a scam. It's always the boomers and Xers because they think everybody's there to screw them. Millennials, you're going to find them on Instagram. And you go over to Gen Z, you start to find them on TikTok. So if you start to ask me what platform, it depends on the generation you're going to go after. And so you're going first-time home buyers, you're going to move up, you're going to move down, you're going to go VA, you're going to go all these things. So again, the question is, how am I going to be on all these platforms, and like, what are you going to do to help me with that, Kai? So it feels impossible, but you gotta be at the right place, otherwise you may not find your audience. So you're juggling 15 things, you don't know if it's working, and the real problem isn't the work itself, it's that you don't have a system, you don't have a structure. So I want to show you one of the most easiest ways that I've done things for myself. And I took this from the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk, Joe Rogan, some pretty famous people that you guys have heard of. How many of you guys are basketball fans? I'm a big Laker fan. I know Patrick is. I know Wally is. We're all about Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality. So Phil Jackson, when he was with the Chicago Bulls, I got to give it where credit is due. He created something called the triangle offense. Does anybody know basketball? Does anybody understand the triangle offense? So what is the basis of the triangle offense? Well, in basketball, what they do is that when you're with the pro team, you have to study this big-ass playbook, right? Now, I want you to pay attention to the word playbook. You go to team, you have to memorize 20, 30, 40, 50 different plays. It's completely overwhelming. That's how you guys feel right now. How many of you even see leaders and coaches say, I will give you the playbook to this. And you read it, and it's like this awesome playbook, but you got to memorize another thing, right? So when they created the triangle offense, they made it really simple. It was based on a philosophy. It wasn't based on set plays. It's based on a triangle system. You're either in the low post under the basket, you're in the wing, or in the high post. And depending on where you are and depending where the defenders went, you moved according to that. Does that make sense? One simple system based on a triangle. So I'm going to show you that system. It's a simple 3-part structure that I'm going to show you. It's very, very clear what to do next. And everything creates momentum. Because when I'm in the triangle and the defender moves this way, I'm going to move accordingly. The other person is going to move accordingly. It's going to free up space, and I'm going to make a basket. So we're going to apply the same principles to business. All right, let's talk about this. Would you guys all agree that in order to create relationships with people, it requires engagement? Whether it's agents, whether it's partners, whether it's consumers, it requires engagement. I want you to remember this right now. There's only 3 ways to engage with people. This is one of the most important slides. There's only 3 ways to engage with people. I don't want you guys to label it modern, traditional, whatever it is. This is just basic communication. One-on-one. Now, one-on-one, actually, I'll get into one-on-one. One-to-many and broadcast. And I'm going to make the distinction between one-to-many direct and one-to-many broadcast. But I want you guys to understand that there's only 3 ways to engage with people. And you have to ask yourself this question, how much of each way? So I'm going to explain each way. One-to-one, yes, it's face-to-face, but it's also SMS, it's DM. Sometimes it's replying to a social media post where you're just replying in the comments. Anything that is direct, one-to-one. High depth, high conversation, but low authority and low leverage. Why is it low leverage? We talked about it, because you're only talking to one person at a time. Now, why would it be low authority when it's also high conversion? So it's high conversion because it's very high touch, but Michael, I'm just meeting you for the first time. Do you know who I am? You don't know who I am. So if I just met you at a Starbucks, do I have any authority over you? No, you see what I'm saying? Even though we're one-on-one, you have absolutely no idea who I am. Low authority. Does that make sense, everybody? So how many times have you met with an agent, you have no authority with them? Think about it. They don't know anything about you, okay? But you also have the highest chance to engage with them and to get personal with them. Does that make sense? One-to-many. This is going to be your classes like this, events, Zooms, group texts, okay? High authority, higher authority, okay? Michael, you've not met me before. If we would have met at a Starbucks, what kind of authority do I have? 0. Do I have authority now, though? Why? Because I'm leading, correct? All right, so if you want to raise your authority, you have to start doing one-to-many. That make sense? Okay. Medium depth, medium conversion, but it's the hardest to replicate. Wally, how many weeks did you put promoting this event and putting it together? Like, it's a pain in the ass, right? A lot, okay? And it requires a high level of follow-up. Raise your hand if you've ever done an event, a webinar, or something for agents or home buyers. Raise your hand. Okay, be honest, raise your hand if you also did all the follow-up necessary to actually make it convert. Oh, because you just thought the event would make it convert, like it would just be magical, right? So you see how without the follow-up, there's no conversion, right? Okay, broadcast. Think of broadcast as like the virtual version of like one-to-many, where you're talking about social media content, email, things like that. Reels, stories, podcasts, super high authority, high leverage. So high authority is because, look at Wally, he's a podcast star, right? He's got 24/7 mindset. So he's creating a digital representation of himself. There was, I want to say about 15 years ago, there was an experiment done by, this was actually even before social media. They created a real estate agent. His name was like Hans Hederman or something like that. They put him in they made a scene and they put his bus stop benches all over the place. You know what I'm talking about? The bus stop ads all over the place. And all these ads, it's like #1 agent, right? A couple months later, they asked, who was the #1 agent in the city? And they all said that person, but it was a fake person. It's a fake person. So what I love about today's day and age is that you can build authority a lot quicker with an online presence, with a wide presence, with a presence that you can lead, with a presence that you can teach, okay? Never before was that possible. You can start today, create a YouTube channel, create a podcast, create social media content, and become an authority. Does everybody agree? So your authority comes up. And the difference between having authority and no authority is the difference between chasing and attracting, okay? Imagine if Wally cold called every single one of you to convince you to buy his book and things like that. That's chasing versus being an authority online and attracting people that want to read his book and come to this event. Does that make sense? And so broadcast is going to give you that. Highest leverage as well, too. One ad can go out to thousands of people. One email can go out to thousands of people. Okay? But lowest depth and lowest conversion if you don't have a follow-up routine from there. So knowing that these are the three, the question is, how do we make them work together? And I wanted to give you one simple system that you can absolutely remember to leave. So, before we get to that, so this is how they stack up, if you guys want to know. So you see how we have the positives and negatives? And the reality of it is that you need to maximize all three if you want the best combination of depth, conversion, authority, and leverage. And this is why we need them all. Okay? How many of you right now feel that if you don't create that balance between all of them, you can possibly become obsolete? You can be like at a disadvantage in the market. And then we've got AI coming. So let me ask you guys a question. Raise your hand if, I want you to think about the three. I'm going to ask you, I want you to raise your hand, which you spend the least amount of time in the three. Raise your hand if one-on-one is where you spend the least amount of time. One-on-one, direct, because you just don't like to go direct to people, okay? Raise your hand if one-to-many is where you spend the least amount of time. Where you're doing classes, where you're doing webinars, raise your hand if that's where you spend the least amount of time, okay? Raise your hand if broadcast is where you spend the least amount of time. In the digital, okay? So there's different reasons for that. The lowest, where people spend most of the time as salespeople, is going to be the one-to-one, because we're trained to do that. Some of you that raised your hand, you may have call reluctance issues, sales issues, so that's a matter of training, confidence, things like that. One-to-many, a lot of people where that's their deficit, it's a confidence issue to lead, and it's also a pain in the ass to put together events like this. But I'm going to tell you that you need to spend time in it. Broadcast, more likely than not, it's a technology intimidation. It's a technology intimidation. Okay, so we've got to get past that. But what I'm going to say to all of you right now, before I move on to how the triangle offense works, is that if you want to create balance, you want to transition into the future correctly, you want to cover all audiences, you want to cover all technologies, look at this first, ask yourself one question, rank yourself 1, 2, and 3, what you do best, what you do mid, and what you do worst, and then flip it, and then do more of what you're missing. If you're not doing enough one-to-manys, you have to do more one-to-manys, more broadcast, or more one-to-one, okay? So let's talk about the triangle offense, how this works. So I was in a situation where, as a coaching company, I was like, I don't want to create content. I don't. It's a pain in the ass to create content. I don't want to sit in front of the camera and say, like, hey, this is Kai McBride. I want to give you a tip today. So what I figured out was I started watching Joe Rogan and all those guys, and none of those guys create content. Right? Patrick, what does Joe Rogan do? Does he actually create content? What does he do?
Interviews people.
He just documents his content. So he just documents his content. That's the first thing I'm going to say. If you're struggling with content, document what you do, and that's the content. Okay? So, but I want to say that, and then I want to go on the rest. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through an exercise really quickly, and I'm going to show you how we're going to cover all three, how it's going to compound. Raise your hand if I asked you, I'm going to give you this homework assignment. This week, when you get back tomorrow, you're going to call your favorite agent, one that you get along with, right? You have a relationship with. And you're going to say, hey, let's jump on a Zoom next week, and let's kind of mastermind what's going on in the market and how we can help each other grow. Raise your hand if you think you're capable of doing that. One-to-one. Really simple, right? You should be able to do that. Okay. I'm going to predict that if you know that agent well and you have a relationship with that agent, that it's going to go well, right? Raise your hand if you think it's going to go well. Trust me, follow me here. Okay. Raise your hand if you think that after that meeting you can look at them and you can say, hey, this was really, really great. Let's do it again. But this time, let's invite some more agents. How about you invite an extra agent and I'll invite an extra agent, because then we have more brainstorming power. What do you think? Raise your hand if you can do that. Okay, so you just went from one-to-one to one-to-many. Off of the first play, you see what I'm saying? You created one play and you say, how do I connect to the next one? Let me do it again, but let me invite more people. What's great about that is that you can get your agent to also bring an agent and invite you to somebody and introduce you to somebody new. But what we did was we just went from one-to-one to one-to-many. When you do that second session, do it on Zoom and record it. Because you're going to talk about a lot of cool things, right? When you record it, you can post it on YouTube to have long-form version, or you can cut it up into Instagram content and push it out to Instagram. Now you went from one-to-one to one-to-many to broadcasts. Make sense? When you're also done, you're going to go back to one-on-one and you're going to call each of the agents and you're going to say, how did you like it? Did that help you? Can I help you with that? Then you went back to one-to-one. You guys just see how that works? We did one thing. This is the system. This is what I'm leaving you with today. We did one thing. We asked ourselves, how do I get to the next thing from this one thing? It started with one strategy. It started with a one-on-one with an agent. We turned it into now a one-on-three with 3 agents. We turned it into broadcast. Okay, we can start anywhere. Let me see what the next slide is before I come back. Okay, let's do another scenario. I post a reel on Instagram. How many times have you guys posted a reel and you're like, you get like 50 likes and a bunch of comments? Really, really great, right? But how many times have you posted a reel on Instagram and you maybe get 5 likes? Those 5 likes is a lot. So you just did a broadcast. What do I do with those 5 likes now? What do I do with those 5 likes and those 5 follows? Follow up with them and DM them. Have a conversation with them. Thank you so much. DM them. I see you follow that. What did you think was best about that? Okay, let's say an agent response. So I just went from broadcast to one-on-one. How do I go from one to many? Hey, I just want to let you know this topic, it's a pretty polarizing topic. I'm going to have a gathering this Friday. We're going to do a little webinar. We're going to talk about this topic more in depth. Would you like to attend? I went from broadcast to one-on-one to one-to-many. I do the one-to-many, I record it. I post it back to broadcast. I do the follow-up. I go back to one-on-one. Does that make sense? Like we're just moving along the triangle. One of the things that plagues us as originators, as marketers, as sales, is we do one thing and it dies. And we have to have something that gives us some roadmap, some simplistic system that not only tells us what to do, but it allows us to compound what we do. I want everybody to think about what you do now, and whether it's one-on-one, one-to-many, or broadcast, how can you get to the next 2 modes? And that will compound its momentum. That makes sense? Everybody here who's a digital marketer knows, like Wally knows, nobody's going to watch my stuff until I first interact one-on-one, push the algorithm, I post my stuff, people are going to comment, and then I'm going to interact with them one-on-one, but I still can't take it anywhere unless I either ask them one-on-one in a meeting, or better yet, sometimes going one-on-one on meeting, it's a little confrontational, but if I ask somebody, but I'm having a group this Friday, would you like to come to that? That's a little bit more, it's less threatening to people, okay? Raise your hand if sometimes you struggle with converting the listing agent in the transaction, right? Like we have a transaction, there's always a listing agent. How do I get the listing agent to want to work with me? Well, most of you do, well, if I do a good job, and then I ask the listing agent at the end, did you like the job that I did? Would you like to work with me again? Instead, I'm one-on-one. I call them one-on-one and I say, by the way, this is my script. You guys can take it. When I start a transaction, I always call the listing agent. And I say, by the way, you do a lot of these transactions all the time, and because the buyer typically picks the lender, it's probably unnerving for you to always work with a new lender, and then you feel like you have to babysit them. I don't want anybody to feel like that with me, so my goal is to show you my systems and processes that you will have zero anxiety and zero insecurity about this loan, because I want you to spend the next 4 weeks working on getting your next transaction. Is that fair? I'll take care of this. You go about your way. Agents love that because I'm providing them leadership and security. So the next time I talk to them, I talk to them a little bit about the loan, but then I ask them a question. So what are you doing to work on business right now? How you doing with the market, right? By the way, I have a mastermind that I'm doing this Friday that I do every 2 weeks with my agents. Would you like to join? We talk about building our business. And I just flip them from one-to-one to one-to-many, okay? And sometimes in your broadcast, you don't necessarily have to record your Zooms. You can just have a great one-on-one meeting with somebody, and afterwards you can just record something and say, hey, I just had a great meeting with Patrick Pitt's agent in Dallas, and I just want to tell you what we talked about, how it can help you, record it, boom, broadcast that out. So if you spend your time just jumping between the 3 modes, you'll be able to compound things better. So let's talk about partnerships. Partnerships is really, really great too. Raise your hand again if you have read 24/7 Mindset and how that works. So, Wally, I've learned a lot from you. And some of the things that I learned from you and some other people. This was a quiz. How many people would like to work with financial planners a little bit more, but you want to figure out how they tick, right? So, Wally, I watched your clip on this. Where do financial planners get most of their referrals from? CPAs. There you go. All right, you guys read the book. I met with a life insurance agent personally. She was actually my first assistant. She's 20 years old, and now 20 years later, she's 40 years old. She's a life insurance broker. And I asked her, I said, where do you get the most of your referrals from? You guys know the answer? Financial planners, right? And so who do CPAs work with? Self-employed borrowers, right? Business owners. We know the most self-employed borrowers in the industries because they're usually all agents, right? So I look at that, and I look at the 24/7 mindset, and I say, how do I use a triangle offense to compound the relationships where it's not just all one-to-one? So I might have a meeting with a estate planning attorney, one-on-one, and I'm going to say, I was referred to you by Wally. I've heard a lot of great things about you. Let me ask you a question. Are you taking any more business right now? The reason why I asked that question is, I'm sorry, what do you name? Darla. What percentage of people do you think have their house in a will or trust? What percentage of people? Like less than 1%? How many people do you think need to have their house in a will or trust? Like every single person, right? So I have a conversation with an estate planning attorney. I was referred to you by Wally. I've heard a lot of great things about you. Most of my database doesn't have an estate plan. Would you like to educate my database in estate planning for that sake, right? I'm going to broadcast that out. I'm also going to talk to some agents and say, hey, I want to reach out to your database. I want to help you nurture your database. I'm doing this with my estate planner. I want to introduce you to him, but also can we send a broadcast out and let's cross-reference our audiences, our target audiences. So I can start with a one-to-one. I can broadcast the message out. Then we do a group, one-to-many, where I'm educating agents' databases on estate planning. That makes sense? I'm just switching between nodes, and I'm now using partners. And in using the triangle offense, I'm using partners to cross-collaborate and create momentum for me. And one of the things that you can do, which is the most powerful things that you can do, is I interviewed Wally a month ago, and he said, how dare we take commission as loan officers, and we do not ask them if they have life insurance. We do not ask them if they have a solid estate plan. We do not ask the business owners, because everybody knows this. If you're a business owner, 50% of your business owners want a new CPA. That we don't ask them, are they happy with their CPA so that they're protected financially, right? Tax-wise, maximize the tax advantage. It's our responsibility. So when we meet with borrowers, our responsibility is to introduce them to our financial and real estate team so we can put them in the best position. And when you use a triangle offense and you use the three, where it's one-to-many, one-to-broadcast, or one-to-one, you can utilize those three formats to get people working together in the three different formats. Does that make sense? So, again, most people stop at a single event, a single lunch and learn, some leads, or one-time content. When you have to make it repeatable with momentum, that builds. And if you use the business partners to work together in the different formats, it's going to create momentum, and they're going to refer to each other. So why most strategies fail when you learn from leaders, you learn from coaches, is a framework and a checklist. What's missing is you don't really get a system on how to run it. You get these content calendars, and it's like, I don't know how to fit it into my day, scripts. I mean, all of these things, unless you have strategies that create leverage, that simplifies things, you're just going to have a lot of stuff. And so tactics don't fix, overwhelm, structure does. And I just wanted to create a structure for you that allows you to connect the dots, allows you to create momentum, but also in the triangle, when you have one-to-one, one-to-many, and broadcast, it fits all generations in how they talk. And it also gives you something that you can build. Patrick Pitts, you said you've been in the business for 20 years? Does it feel like 20 years or 1 month, 240 times?
Yeah, more like that.
Right? So when you're in a one-to-one situation, it can feel like you're repeating the same month over and over again, like Groundhog Day. But when you build something, when you build momentum, you build your database, you build your partnerships, you run the triangle offense, you can look back and say, look at the partnerships that I've created, look at the mechanism that I've created, look at the social media followings that I created, the podcasts that I created, and look at this cohesive unit of partners that are working together because of me. And you have something to show for the time and effort that you put into it. So these are all the things that you need to look for, is that your system should give you consistent opportunities, new relationships, maximum reach, maximum momentum. If it doesn't amplify, simplify, and multiply, it's not a system, it's just a bunch of new work. That's really the definition of the system, all those three. What becomes possible is, like I mentioned, transition to modern, because it's easier. You're documenting your things, you're just promoting the things that you're doing. You're not waking up every single day thinking, I need to create a piece of content. No, just do what you do. You have a great 40-minute conversation with a borrower and you did the best PMI explanation possible. Either clip it and create content, or get on the phone afterwards and say, I just had this really great conversation with the borrower. But you're creating momentum from that conversation. Does that make sense? You're not having a conversation with the borrower and then the next day asking yourself, what kind of content should I do? You just document what you just did. You create momentum. So you're not changing anything, you're just realigning yourself. So this is a triangle, this is your turning point. I wanted to create something extremely simple that you can walk away with. All you have to remember is this. I'm gonna sum it up again. There's only 3 ways to engage with people. Ask yourself where you're lacking, do more of that. And I guarantee you, if you fill the 3, you're gonna get more momentum, you're gonna reach more generations, it's gonna be more intuitive because things are going to compound. And that's what I wanted to teach you with. Thank you so much for coming today. And Wally, I hope that I completely see this integrating into like a 24/7 system, correct? I mean, and letting the partners know, and it's just, I don't think anymore. I wake up and I do my thing and I ask myself, how do I document this and how do I turn this into something else? I'm in a one-to-many situation here and I'm already looking in the audience and a couple things is gonna happen. I'm gonna follow up with a lot of you personally. Wally's gonna follow up with a lot of you personally. This is content. We're gonna talk about what happened today. You're gonna see it posted for several weeks. It's gonna create momentum. What is that gonna do? People are gonna comment on that. I'm gonna go back to one-on-one and then I'm gonna do another one-to-many event. And it just keeps going, right? So thank you so much for having me today. Wally and I are gonna stick with the Q&A.
So Caleb and Kai are gonna do a drawing while I set up the chairs. Yeah, okay. You're gonna do it. You got this. Don't be nervous.
Never nervous.
All right, Kai, what are we giving away?
Yeah, we got 3 things we're gonna be giving away. We got the first one, which is gonna be a wireless microphone. Why don't you read that? We got a koozie in there too, so might want a koozie.
Tony McDaniel.
Tony.
Oh, he's a spy. It's an inside job. Inside job.
The second item that we have for you guys is going to be very similar to what you see Brittany working with right here. Exact same one that Brittany's got.
I'm going bottom of the stack. Ian Blake. Ian Blake, veteran. There we go, Ian.
Last one, Brittany, what else do we have here?
What do we have here? Oh, it's a complete little mini podcast set to get you guys going on creating your content and getting those videos out there.
I'm going top and bottom. Yosemite Gum. Did I pronounce that correctly with cross country? There we go.
All right, so you're gonna sit right there. We're gonna do a Q&A, but before we do that, we're gonna take a selfie with the group. Why? Because we're creating content.
Correct, we are.
All right, you guys look interesting, fun, exciting. Wave your hand or something. All right, perfect. Okay, so this is the Q&A section with Kai. One of the questions that I wanted to ask, can you guys hear me okay? It is on, at least I think it's on. All right, is this better? Wow, okay. Yeah, a little better. Okay, so One of the questions that I want to ask, and this is a question for you guys first, and we'll let Kai kind of give his opinion. So when you look at your business, professionally, personally, do you want to focus on, raise your hand if you want to focus on improving your strengths, versus raise your hand if you want to improve on improving your weaknesses. Okay. I feel the answer is raising your hand is focus on improving your weaknesses. That one thing I really liked about the last slide is you helping focus. So if someone wants to focus on, well, which one do you think it is? Improving your weaknesses or improving your strengths?
I think what you need to do is you need to put your energy into your strengths, but your systems have to make up your weaknesses. Okay, so I'm going to give you a Kobe Bryant quote. Kobe Bryant says, I don't care about the offense. The offense is for the B players because I'm the strength. And so I want you to focus on your strength because it's so natural, but you need the systems to make up your weaknesses. And that's why the system makes up your weaknesses.
Such a freaking great answer. Wow. Okay. That's impressive.
Because if you're a one-on-one person, do that as much as you can. Record it. Maybe hire a team to help you with the content. Have somebody help you with putting together the one-to-manys, right? But the reverse, if you're a total content person, then really, really focus on that and more systemize your follow-up in terms of the way you do your calendar and the way that you have a lead tracker or something like that, because it'll keep you accountable for your weaknesses. Yeah.
So raise your hand if you feel that one of your weaknesses is time management. Everybody's hand should be raised, by the way. What's your advice for focusing on how to improve your time management?
I measure effectiveness more than I measure accomplishing things, right? And so, like, I'll give you an example in the social media world. You can create this complete content calendar, which tells you what to post every single day and do every single day. But if you don't create depth, depth is more important. So I'm going to give you two answers to it. The second answer is there's really no such thing as time management as much as energy management. Energy management makes time management better. So Lacey Newman, she's a top producing agent coach that I know, or she's an agent coach that I know, and she'll say, I could do a CMA at 8 a.m. and I can do it at 3 a.m. But at 3 a.m. I'm totally burnt out, and like the quality is going to be different, right? So what I'm saying is that I love time management, I love calendars, and I love time blocks and things like that. But it's got to be effective. And what I like about what I show you today is you can sit there and you can create time blocks and to create these 5 pieces of content. But if they're disparate and they don't connect with each other, they don't create momentum. I'd much rather see you take one thing and just ride it to town and try to create as much momentum as possible, because I think it's about effectiveness, and then you stay in your zone. There are a few outliers in the world, like Wally. If you've ever seen his calendar, he's a freak of nature. But you know, Wally, you even say to me, like, you're much different than most people. What does the average person do? They're not like your type A, boom, 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 boom personality. And so most of you, it's about momentum. Momentum and energy create everything. Okay, and so that's why I wanted to give you a system that creates the most momentum possible, so you get the most ROI and effectiveness possible out of your day. And then from there, we start to tighten it up with systems.
That reminds me of it was an Alex Hermosi reel. Somebody was asking Alex to do a podcast, and Alex Hermosi was pushing back, and he goes, the podcast person was like, hey, you know, do you just have too many things on your calendar? You can't fit it in. I thought you prioritized your calendar. And Alex Hermosi pulls out his phone, shows him his calendar. There's literally nothing the whole day.
Yeah.
The second day was nothing the whole day. I think what's beautiful about that is someone in that position gives them time to be creative, gives them time to be artistic, gives them time for his magic, his gift to the universe to be able to come out. And when you look at us as loan officers, we've got loan application after prospecting time, after pipeline meeting. You look at our calendars. So let's elaborate on that a little bit. When a loan officer has got way too many things on their calendar, how do they find it down to where you talked about managing energy? How do you focus your calendar to be able to match the energy that you want to manage?
The first thing that people need to do in order be able to do more is to press the limits of how much you can do, first of all. As a small example, I don't know if anybody golfs, but raise your hand if you golf. I'm trying to increase my distance, and so what I'm doing is I'm doing speed training. And for those of you that don't know golf, what speed training is I'm just working on my physical fitness ability to speed train because I can only swing so fast, so I have to somehow swing faster, right? If you look at Kobe, one of the things that made him so great was he was like Kobe and Michael Jordan actually did full workouts before championship games because they wanted to be able to perform even at the lowest level. Does that make sense? And so here's a challenge that I give everybody. I challenge and I've done this before. It's hard, but I challenge everybody for the next 30 days to lock yourself in and work harder than you've ever done before. Okay, I do not condone this on a regular basis, so you have to ask permission and get agreement from your family, your wife, your spouses, everybody that's a part of your life, and say, listen, for the next 30 days, I'm going to check out. I'm going to work 12-hour days because I'm finally going to do all the things that I say I'm not going to do. And the purpose of that 30 days is to push yourself beyond what your normal tolerance level is in terms of being able to work. Most of you start work at 9 o'clock and you check out at 5. There's no way you're going to create a higher sense of capacity. Does that make sense? Not until you know how to work hard for 90 days do you raise your capacity, then you can throttle back and say, you know, now I can do this. It's like I know originators that do 400 loans a year, and if you looked at them and you said, how easy would it be for you to do 100 loans a year? They would say, well, that's easy, right? It's like half the capacity, but you have to push yourself to that point. You know, and for anybody here who's a Kobe Bryant fan, people always talk about when Kobe was alive, it was crazy. I'd meet him at 5 o'clock and he just finished his other workout to work out with me at 5 o'clock, right? And so that's why he lasted so long in his career. And I think people struggle with time management, energy management because you've never pushed yourself beyond. Usain Bolt trained for 8 years to run 3 seconds. And so if you look at the professional athlete, we're professionals, and you need to spend a lot more time pushing what you learn, creating systems, and pushing your physical self beyond what you're capable of, so that when it's game time, you're performing, and you can perform your 40% is better than your competition's 100%. That's the performance coach side of me, by the way, because I am a performance coach, and it's like, how do I get somebody to maximize their day and capability?
So, okay, now you're helping with time management, you're helping with social proof and prospecting. How do we bring this triangle offense, or how do you bring your teachings to our personal life?
I think it's a great question. I think that when you look at the triangle offense, there's basically 3 modes or 3 nodes, right? And I think you can replace those. I think you can replace those with your personal life too. So it may not be you're trying to create one-to-many and broadcast, but ask yourself this question. Maybe you have your family, you have your health, and you have your hobbies, right? So if I'm going to do a hobby, how do I do my hobby better? By connecting to my health. And then how do I evolve my family into that hobby too, right? And so I'm always going everything. Like if you ask yourself, like every hobby that I do, how do I incorporate my family? Then you never have to worry about splitting time between your hobbies and your family, because your family is part of your hobbies. And then if you say, if I create a hobby that actually helps my health, then I'm getting healthy while I'm doing my hobby. It could be boxing, it could be golf, it could be anything else. And so that would be how a triangle offense would work.
Well, and also I think it's all got to fit within the triangle. I mean, we talked about, you said family, you said health, then spiritual. Hobby. So if you follow me on social, I've been on this journey of 10,000 steps in a day. And thank you, Wayne. In this last week, we dropped off our youngest to Baylor for college. So now we're empty nesters. And usually I walk during the evening. Well, my kids were home, or they're home for the summer, so my wife wasn't home by herself. And it fit well. Now that the kids are off to college and my wife's home by herself, I woke up this morning at 4 a.m. and now I'm starting to walk in the morning before my workout, before I go in the office, and I'm still getting my 10,000 steps in. But then it's a better balance because then I'm home with her for dinner during the evening and I'm not out walking while she's sitting home by herself. So as you're looking for your business and what you talked about, going all in, Nikki could care less if I work 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day, but she's got one non-negotiable, which is make it to dinner, be home for dinner. And if you hit those non-negotiables with your spouses or your partners, you absolutely can have a phenomenal marriage, a phenomenal business, and a phenomenal personal life.
I mean, that's how we do business as well, right? I want to come here and have a business meeting with you, but let's do it on the golf course. And let's invite a bunch of people. Let's invite Brock and Tracy and everybody else. And now we turn it into a thing. And then we come here and then it's content, like connect everything. And then you have one integrated life. And that's really what we're trying to do is we're trying to integrate our things in life and not create separation, which is overwhelming.
So I'm going to wrap up with my questions, but who has questions for Kai that you want to raise your hand and ask him a question?
Yeah, so for the follow-up and all your one-on-ones, do you have a team of appointment setters, or what does that look like? Are you handling all those messages one-on-one from the DMs yourself, or do you have a team of people with access to your Instagram account, you're reconnecting with those likes and followers?
I mean, I think all of those options are good. The main thing is it's all about momentum. Whether it's you or whether it's somebody, it needs to happen right away because you have to maintain the momentum. So at first it's going to be you. And then if you get the luxury of having people, then have them do it. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to have people, but it takes them an hour to respond, 2 hours to respond. The game is momentum. That's really what the game is. And you're going to be doing that. But hopefully the momentum snowballs enough that you create the revenue momentum in order to hire those people. And automation helps a lot as well too. Like ManyChat.
Well, and I also feel like you got to be the amateur before you become the professional. So if I'm going to hire someone to do a task for me, at least I don't know if this is a good leadership quality or a bad leadership quality, I want to be able to have done the task so I can lead them, inspire them, and help them have a model or a system to be able to accomplish the task. If I've never prospected through DM and never returned messages, like who am I to ever coach these people? So that helps, in my opinion, have your teammate have a stronger result because you're leading from the front and you've done their job. So it gives you the authority to be able to coach and lead them.
100%.
Cool. All right. Who's got another question?
What do you suggest? Realtors constantly post. They have more accolades than anybody on the planet. So everybody's always saying congratulations, whatever. What would you suggest we say that would separate us in regards to that congratulations, or do you instant message them saying?
Yeah.
So let's repeat the question so everybody else can hear it.
So Brian wants to know, how do we connect with agents when, let's say, they post a lot of accolades and they're getting congratulations all the time? Like, how do we,
Whatever.
yeah, how do we break from the norm? Okay, a little bit of psychology. People gravitate toward people that are like them, right? People gravitate toward people that are like them. And one of the keys with business partners is really I would key into their personal life more than anything. You like sports, I like sports. You have a dog, I got a dog. You have, congratulations, you just dropped off your son at Baylor, I just dropped off my daughter at USC, right? So you're going to create a lot of connection that way. What I love about social media, DMing and everything else more than text message, how many of you guys have struggled calling an agent not knowing what to talk about? How many of you struggle texting an agent not knowing what to talk about? But I can go on their social media and figure out that Wally, the agent, just dropped off his kid at Baylor, and then I can say, hey, congratulations, I just dropped off my kid at USC. What was that like? And I can build a bond. Jeffrey Gittimore, who is a longtime sales coach back in the day, he said, in order for people to do business with you, they want trust, and trust is built in 2 ways. Number one, proof of value, but the faster way is friendship. And to prove that, how many of you have had a high school friend hit you up, it's been 20 years, but they want you to do the mortgage? Something weird about that. You know what I mean? We used to hang out underneath the bleachers 20 years ago. Now you want me to do your mortgage? So there's something in that. The other thing that I would say is that business is a lot more fun when it's also the opposite, when you feel that they're like you, because then you can be yourself. You can talk about things. It's a lot more fun for me to work with Wally, the fact that we're both Kobe Bryant fans and we're both golfers. If we didn't have that, it would be all business all the time. And so you need to look at the personal aspect of creating relationships as well.
I lied. I've got one more question. Biggest challenge most people have with call reluctance is having call confidence. If we can eliminate having that call, or if we can perform the call confidence, it eliminates call reluctance. What's your advice for using the triangle in a system format that it's a process which eliminates any call reluctance?
Well, if we look at the core of call reluctance, so here's some Buddhist philosophy. All suffering comes from attachment, meaning that you're attached to an idea, and you're attached to an idea of success and failure. Okay, if you're so attached to that idea, or you're so attached to, like, I can possibly fail, that it's actually stopping you dead in your tracks. So what we do is we need to remove that. This reminds me of a funny story. This was years ago when I was single. I was in Vegas and I was with a bunch of friends. We were at this nightclub and we all wanted to go to the next nightclub. A friend of mine says, I have a challenge for everybody. We don't go to the next nightclub until every single person here asks 5 girls to dance. If you don't ask 5 girls to dance, you ain't going to a nightclub. You finish 5 girls, ask 5 girls to dance, we're good. So Patrick, I'll call on you. Every single guy did it. There were 5 of us, so 25 girls were asked to dance. What do you think was the lowest number of yeses we got each out of 5?
What you else guess? 3, 2, what else?
It was 2. It was 2. But 2 was the lowest. It was 40%, right? One guy said 2.5. I said, how did you get 2.5? I'm like, well, she said yes, but as soon as we got on the dance floor, she left. You know what I'm talking about, right? All right. But let me ask you a different question. How much more intimidating would the assignment have been if we would have said, you don't go to the next nightclub until you get 2 girls to say yes? One is focused on the result, one is focused on the process. So if you guys follow sports, if you follow life, do you guys know what it means to choke? I missed that big free throw. The definition of choking is when you're so fixated on the result, you forget the process. One of the reasons why we have call reluctance is so we're so fixated on the possible result of failure or success. What I recommend is you put yourself through the training and you just see if it works. And if it doesn't work, you say, oh, well, that didn't work. Take the pressure off yourself. I would say that if you want to ask for referrals, call 10 people, use the same script, and then take notes what happened. Change it a little bit. You're simply out there doing research and R&D, okay? Because my coach, Dan Sullivan, if you know Dan Sullivan, he coached me for 4 years. He wrote the book, Who Not How, right? Time Traps. He says that confidence is actually last. The first thing that you have to do is you have to commit to something. I'm going to commit to calling for these referrals. Second thing you have to have is you have to have courage. You're not worrying about the result. You learn the capability along the way, and that's what creates confidence. Confidence is not a prerequisite. Confidence is actually a subliminal thing that your mind is telling you that I've done this before. But you can't say that to yourself unless you've done it. The only other way to achieve confidence, because you haven't done it before, is you have to have the confidence in the script because somebody else did it. How many times have you guys tried a script because somebody else said, I did this script 20 times and it worked, so you have the confidence in that person? Does that make sense? Or you have confidence because you visualize it over and over and again. But I would still recommend that. Again, this is like sports. We take too much time playing the game and not practicing the game. And if you want to get over call reluctance, you have to build a game. Fun fact, 2001, I'm personal friends with Tim Brahim, if you know Tim. And when I got into the industry, I actually asked him, I said, can I be your loan officer assistant? He says, nope, you're not going to learn enough from me. I'm going to have you work on a deal here and there. It's not going to work. So he made me go work at a call center. And this is my philosophy with everything. Bleed all over yourself. That's what he said. Just bleed all over yourself. I took 2 calls a day, averaged 500 phone calls in a year. I stayed there for 2 years. I had 700 one-on-one client consultations. I heard every objection with rate, with price, with everything. Doesn't faze me to talk to a borrower anymore. Doesn't faze me at all. Because it was just part of my training regimen to build that tolerance.
I think it was a Joe Montana quote, and somebody said like how great of a football player he is, football playing, and like you're awesome. He goes, I practiced 7 to 8 hours a day for 6 days for 45 minutes of playing time on Sunday. I practiced 8 hours a day for 6 days for 45 minutes worth of playing time on Sunday. I mean, we got to chew on that. How much time do we actually practice in our business? How much time do we have to invest in our verbal strength? How much time do we actually invest in our demeanor, our presence, our tone, our pitch, our pauses, how we frame, versus go out there and just try to win the deal with our personality? That's what following a system is all about. So, all right, round of applause for Kai McBride. Oh, last thing. So everybody come to the front of the room. We're gonna do one big photo with everyone and just line up on this wall right here.